She didn't scream, she didn't throw things. She didn't even cry. On the night of her own birthday, when most people are blowing out candles and making wishes, she was sealing an envelope, picking up her bag, and walking out the door, forever, and she never looked back. Her name was Maya. And if you knew Maya, you knew one thing about her immediately. She loved with everything she had. Not the kind of love that's easy or casual. The kind that's deliberate, intentional. The kind where she remembered your favorite coffee order without asking, where she showed up at your door when you were sad, even before you told her you were sad. That kind of love. She was 28 years old, working as a graphic designer at a small agency downtown. She had this laugh, loud, unfiltered, the kind that made strangers in restaurants turn and smile. She kept a small journal by her bed. She watered her plants every Sunday morning. She called her mother every Thursday night, without fail. And she believed in people. That was Maya's greatest gift, and as it turned out, her greatest vulnerability. She had been with Daniel for 3 years. 3 years of Sunday morning breakfasts and late-night drives and inside jokes that nobody else understood. 3 years of building something, a life, a future, a home that felt real and warm and safe. Daniel was charming. Everyone said so. Tall, sharp sense of humor. The kind of man who knew exactly what to say in every room he walked into. He made Maya feel chosen, special. Like out of everyone in the world, she was the one he picked. Not blindly, she wasn't naive. She trusted him because she had given him every reason to be trustworthy, and she believed people returned what you gave them. She believed that right up until the morning of her 28th birthday, when everything she thought she knew collapsed quietly without warning. Like a building that looks perfectly fine from the outside, until it doesn't. She had been planning her birthday for weeks, not in an over-the-top way. Maya wasn't that kind of person. She didn't need a party with 100 people or a surprise flash mob or anything extravagant. She just wanted a good day, her kind of day, simple, warm, and full of the people and things she loved. She had picked out her dress 2 weekends before. A deep green wrap dress that she found at a small boutique near her office. She tried it on, looked in the mirror, and thought, yes, this is the one. She hung it on the outside of her closet door so she could see it every morning when she woke up. She had ordered her own cake, lemon with lavender frosting from the bakery 3 blocks down that she'd walked past 100 times and always told herself she'd try someday. Her birthday felt like the right someday. She had made a dinner reservation at a quiet Italian restaurant that Daniel had mentioned once months ago, saying he'd always wanted to go. She had remembered, of course she had remembered. She woke up that morning with the kind of feeling you only get a few times a year, that light, buzzing excitement where the day already feels golden before it's even started. She stretched in bed, smiled at the ceiling, and thought, today's going to be a good day. She made herself a cup of coffee and sat by the window in her pajamas, watching the street below come alive. She texted her mom. She texted her best friend Priya. She got back a string of birthday emojis and voice notes that made her laugh out loud alone in her kitchen. Daniel had texted too. Happy birthday, beautiful. Tonight is going to be perfect. I promise. She read that message and felt warm all the way through. She had no idea that in less than 2 hours that warmth would be gone, replaced by something cold and still and permanent. It started with a phone. Daniel had left his phone on the kitchen counter when he went to shower. This wasn't unusual, he did it all the time. Maya wasn't a snooping kind of person. She had never once gone through his messages, never felt the need to, but the phone lit up. And the name on the screen wasn't one she recognized. She didn't pick it up right away. She stood there for a moment, coffee cup in hand, looking at that glowing screen from across the kitchen. Something moved in her stomach. Not panic exactly, more like a quiet, creeping unease, the kind your body feels before your mind is willing to admit why. She walked over slowly. She looked at the notification. One message, from a contact saved only as K. Does she know yet? Maya set down her coffee cup. She picked up the phone. She told herself she wasn't going to look further. She told herself it was probably nothing, Probably a misunderstanding, probably something with a completely reasonable explanation. She looked further. What she found wasn't a single message. It was months. Months of conversations that painted a picture so clear and so complete that there was no room left for doubt, or hope, or the comfort of maybe. There were photos. There were plans they had made together. Restaurants Daniel had told Maya he'd never been to. Weekends he said he'd spent with work friends. A night 2 months ago when he had held Maya and told her he loved her. And then, apparently, texted Kay from the bathroom. Maya read everything. She didn't rush. She didn't skim. She sat down at the kitchen table in her pajamas on her birthday, and she read every single word. And here is the thing that would have surprised anyone who knew her. She didn't cry. Not one tear. Not because she wasn't devastated. She was. She could feel the devastation sitting heavy in her chest like something solid and immovable. But the tears didn't come. Instead, what settled over her was something quieter and more frightening than tears. It was clarity. Sudden, total, unasked-for clarity. The kind that arrives after a long fog finally lifts, and you can see exactly where you are, and exactly how you got there. She heard the shower turn off. She put the phone back exactly where Daniel had left it. She stood up, walked to the window, and looked outside at the same street she had watched an hour ago with a coffee cup and a smile. It looked completely different now. Daniel came out of the bathroom in a cloud of steam towel around his waist, humming something under his breath. He kissed Maya on the top of her head and said, "You look beautiful this morning." Then he opened the fridge and started talking about what time they should leave for dinner. Maya said nothing. She sat at the kitchen table and she listened to him talk. About the restaurant, about the reservation, about how he'd heard the pasta there was incredible. And she watched him the way you watch something you're seeing for the very last time, carefully, completely, trying to understand how something can look exactly the same on the outside while being entirely different on the inside. She thought about crying. She thought about throwing his phone across the room. She thought about demanding answers, about making him explain himself word by word until he ran out of excuses and had nothing left to hide behind. But even as she thought about all of those things, she knew she wasn't going to do any of them, because something had shifted inside her in those quiet minutes at the kitchen table. Something had quietly, permanently rearranged itself, and what she felt now, underneath the devastation, underneath the disbelief, was something she hadn't expected to feel. She felt free. Not happy, not okay, but free. Like a door had been opened that she hadn't even known she'd been standing behind. She didn't want to fight with Daniel. She didn't want his explanations or his apologies or his guilt-soaked promises to do better. She didn't want to give him the chance to make this into something she had to manage and process and eventually forgive. She didn't want to hand him her pain and watch him fumble with it. What she wanted was simple and total. She wanted out, with every piece of herself intact, with her dignity, with her silence, with the kind of exit that needed no audience and no applause, just a door closing quietly on something that had already been over for longer than she'd known. Daniel was still talking. Something about dessert now. Maya stood up from the table. "I'm going to get ready," she said. And she walked to the bedroom, closed the door behind her, and sat down at her small writing desk. She pulled out a piece of paper, and she began to write. She didn't plan what she was going to say. She just started writing and let the words come, and they came easily the way things do when they've been living inside you for a long time without a way out. She didn't write in anger. That surprised her, even as it was happening. She had expected anger. She had thought that when this moment came, and somewhere deep down, she realized now, some part of her had always known a moment like this might come, she would be furious, loud with it, on fire with it. But she wasn't angry. She was something quieter and more permanent than angry. She was done. And this is what she wrote. "Daniel Lugrill, I read the messages, all of them. I'm not going to pretend I didn't, and I'm not going to wait for you to find a version of this that sounds better than what it is. I want you to know that I'm not writing this because I want you to feel guilty. I'm writing it because I deserve to say it, and you deserve to hear it. Clearly, without a fight, without tears, without the noise that would let both of us avoid what's actually true. You didn't just cheat on me. You cheated on the version of me that trusted you completely. The version that planned her birthday around making you happy. The version that remembered what you said you wanted, even when you'd already forgotten you said it. You cheated on 3 years of someone loving you carefully and honestly and without reservation. I hope you understand what that means. I hope someday, when the dust settles and the guilt fades and life moves on the way life always does, I hope you sit with it and understand what it actually cost. But here's what I need you to know most. I'm not broken. I'm not going to be broken by this. I was whole before you, and I will be whole after you. More whole, maybe, because now I know exactly what I will never accept again. I loved you genuinely. I gave you something real, and I'm taking it back now. Not because I hate you, but because I finally love myself enough not to stay. Don't call. Don't come after me. There is nothing left to say that I need to hear. Today was supposed to be my birthday. And in a way, it still is. She didn't change a single word. She folded it carefully, slowly, the way you fold something that matters. She slid it into the envelope she had taken from the desk drawer. She pressed the flap down. She wrote his name on the front. Just his name, nothing else. She carried it to the kitchen table and set it down in the center, where he would see it the moment he walked in. Then she went back to the bedroom. And she got dressed. She put on the green dub, Reyes says. Of course she did. She had picked it out for a celebration. And that's exactly what this was going to be. Just not the one she had imagined. She stood in front of the mirror and looked at herself for a long moment, not checking her appearance, just looking, just making sure she was still there, still whole, still the person she recognized. She did her makeup slowly, deliberately, the way you do things when you're being careful with yourself. She put on the earrings her mother had given her last year, small gold hoops that she wore whenever she needed to feel like herself. Daniel knocked on the bedroom door and said they should probably start heading out soon. She said she'd be ready in a few minutes. She was. She picked up her bag, the one she had quietly packed while he was in the kitchen, the important things, the things that were hers and only hers. Her journal, her charger, the small framed photo of her and Priya from a trip they'd taken 2 summers ago, the things that told the story of who she was. She opened the bedroom door. Daniel was standing in the living room, jacket on, keys in hand, smiling at her. His eyes moved over her dress and his smile widened. "You look incredible," he said. Maya looked at him. She took in his face, the face she had kissed good morning for 3 years. The face she had watched sleep, the face she had believed in completely. She held it in her mind, like a photograph. Then she walked past him. She walked to the front door. She put her hand on the handle. "Maya," his voice behind her, confused. "The restaurant is the other way. Where are you?" She opened the door. She stepped outside. The evening air hit her face, cool and clean. The street was busy. People walking, laughing, living their Thursday nights. She walked down the steps and onto the pavement, and she didn't stop walking. She didn't low. Okay, back behind her. Inside the apartment, she heard him call her name one more time, and then the sound of the street swallowed it whole. Daniel stood in the doorway for a full minute after she left. He called her name again, out into the empty hallway, as though she might still be standing just beyond the door. She wasn't. He went to the window and looked down at the street below and caught a flash of green moving through the crowd, and then she was gone. He told himself there was a reasonable explanation. He told himself she'd had a long morning, that she was probably stressed, that she'd call in 10 minutes and he'd laugh about how worried he'd been. He went to the kitchen to get his phone. That's when he saw the envelope. White, centered on the table, his name on the front in her handwriting. That careful, slanted handwriting he knew as well as his own. He stood there looking at it for a moment before picking it up, the way you hesitate before opening something you already suspect is going to hurt you. He opened it. He read it once, fast, The way you read something when you're hoping speed will somehow soften the impact. It didn't. He read it again, slowly this time. By the third time, he was sitting down. He sat at that kitchen table for a long time after he finished reading. The dinner reservation came and went. His phone lit up, a friend asking if they were still on for drinks later. He didn't respond. The apartment that had always felt warm and full felt very large and very quiet. He picked up his phone and called her. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. He typed out a message, then deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too, because he understood, as he sat there in the silence she had left behind, that there were no words that could do what he needed them to do, no apology that could reach across double word. Hat he had broken. She had said everything in that envelope, and she had meant every word. It was smaller than the one she had shared with Daniel. 1 bedroom, 3rd floor, a window in the kitchen that looked out over the rooftops. She painted the walls herself. A warm ivory in the living room, a deep dusty blue in the bedroom. She hung her own artwork. She arranged her furniture the way she wanted it, without compromise or negotiation. She got a new plant, then 3 more. Then, somewhat inevitably, 6. Priya came over the first weekend, and they ordered too much food, and stayed up until 2 in the morning talking. And at some point, Maya laughed so hard, she had to put her wine glass down. And Priya looked at her across the mess of takeout containers and said, "You seem like yourself again." Maya thought about that for a long time after Priya went home. Because she wasn't herself again. Not exactly. She was something different. Something that had been through something and come out the other side not unscathed but not destroyed either. Changed. Quieter in some ways, clearer in others. More certain of what she wanted and what she would never again settle for. She still had hard nights. She'd be lying if she said she didn't. There were evenings when she'd be washing dishes or walking home from work and something, a song, a selm, a certain quality of light, would catch her off guard, and she'd feel the old grief move through her like weather. She'd let it. She didn't fight it or rush it. She had learned that you can feel something fully without being undone by it. She started painting again, something she'd let go of years ago. She took a ceramics class on Wednesday evenings. She booked a trip to Portugal with Priya for the spring. She did not reach out to Daniel. Not once. She didn't need to, because the thing about walking away with your dignity is that you don't spend years wondering what you should have said. You already said it. You sealed it in an envelope and you left it on a table and you walked out into your own life. And your own life, it turns out, had been waiting for you the whole time. There's a kind of strength that the world doesn't always recognize because it doesn't make noise. It doesn't flip tables or leave voicemails full of fury. It doesn't post anything online. It doesn't need witnesses or validation or applause. It just gathers itself quietly, looks at the situation with clear eyes and decides, not this, not anymore. Maya's story isn't extraordinary because of what was done to her. Betrayal, unfortunately, is not rare. People cheat. People lie. People take the love they're given and treat it carelessly, and it happens every day, in 1,000 different apartments, on 1,000 different ordinary mornings. What made Maya's story extraordinary was what she chose to do with it. She chose dignity over drama, silence over screaming, a sealed envelope over 100 unanswered questions. She chose to leave cleanly with every piece of herself in her own hands, refusing to hand her pain to the person who caused it. That is not weakness, that is not coldness, that is not indifference. That is not indifference. That is a woman who loved herself enough, maybe for the first time in a long time, to walk away from something that was slowly, quietly diminishing her. And if you're watching this and you recognize something in Maya's story, if there's a situation in your own life where you've been staying because leaving feels too hard, too loud, too final, maybe the thing worth asking yourself is this. What would it feel like to write the letter? Not to send it, not even to show anyone, just to write it, to say the true thing clearly to yourself. Because Samatim, as the most powerful thing you can do is not the thing that makes the most noise. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply